Okay, so you know how we're always talking about taking a deep dive into a topic? Well, today we're diving into the world of supply chains.
Supply chain's a fascinating topic. And you know what else is fascinating?
What's that?
Smartphones. I mean, they're everywhere, right?
True, and I bet most of us don't think twice about what it took to get that phone in our hands.
Exactly. It's like this invisible journey with so many moving parts.
An invisible journey. I like that. So are you saying we should all become smartphone anthropologists or something?
Maybe not anthropologists. But seriously, when we break down what goes into making a smartphone, it's mind-blowing.
Okay, so let's break it down then. Let's say we have your smartphone right here, and we totally disassemble it. What would we even find inside?
Well, first you've got your raw materials, like silicon. Did you know most of the high-purity silicon used in electronics comes from mines in Australia?
Australia, seriously. All the way from down under to make my phone work.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then there's the glass for your phone's display that often starts as regular sand processed in places like China or Japan.
Wow, so we're talking a global operation from the very beginning.
Absolutely. And we haven't even gotten to the lithium for your phone's battery, often sourced from South America.
Okay, so we've got sand from China, lithium from South America, silicon from Australia. This is already a wild ride. And it gets turned into a smartphone. How?
That's where the real magic happens, the manufacturing process. We're talking highly specialized factories, crafting things like camera lenses with insane precision processors that are more powerful than ever. It's incredible.
It really is amazing how they cram all that technology into such a small device.
Right. And it wouldn't be possible without this key concept called just-in-time manufacturing.
Just in time? What does that even mean?
So imagine it like a relay race. Each runner has to be in the right place at the exact right time to keep things moving smoothly.
Okay, I'm following.
Well, just-in-time manufacturing is like that. Each component arrives just when it's needed for the next stage of assembly.
So everything's perfectly timed to keep the process flowing. That makes sense, but also sounds kind of high pressure. What happens if one little thing goes wrong?
That's the catch with these complex systems. They're efficient, but also vulnerable to disruptions.
Disruptions like what?
Think about natural disasters, like a tsunami wiping out a factory, or even just a big snowstorm delaying shipments.
Oh, wow. I never really thought about it like that.
And remember that whole microchip shortage we had not too long ago?
Oh, yeah, that was a mess.
Exactly. It highlighted how even a small disruption in one part of the world can have ripple effects across the entire global supply chain.
Like a domino effect?
Exactly. And those disruptions can have a huge impact on businesses and consumers alike.
So it's a delicate balance trying to create a system that's both efficient and resilient.
You got it. And that's something that companies are constantly grappling with as they navigate the complexities of global supply chains.
So, okay, we've got all these raw materials from all over the place, and they're transformed into these tiny, intricate components. But how do those components actually become a phone? What's the next step?
Well, that's where we enter the world of manufacturing. These massive factories where things get really interesting.
Oh, yeah, I bet. We hear about these places where they're putting together thousands of phones a day with robots and everything.
Exactly. It's amazing what they can do. These days, they're using some serious automation to speed up the process and make sure everything is precise.
It's mind-blowing. So we've got the raw materials, the manufacturing. What's the final link in the chain? How do these smartphones actually end up in our hot little hands?
That's where the unsung heroes of the supply chain come, and the distributors and retailers.
Yeah.
They're the ones who make sure the phones get from the factory to the store shelves or to your doorstep.
It's true. We never really think about that whole process. When I order something online, I just expect it to magically appear a couple of days later.
Right. But behind the scenes, there's a ton of logistics involved.
Right.
We're talking about warehouses, trucks, planes, cargo ships. It's a whole coordinated effort to get those phones where they need to be.
So basically, it's like a global scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
But instead of clues, it's just a bunch of really organized people and systems.
Pretty much. And of course, we can't forget the most important part of the supply chain. The reason it all exists in the first place.
Let me guess. The customers.
Bingo. Without us, the whole system would fall apart.
True enough. But I've got to say, it must be pretty tough for companies to keep up with our ever-changing demands. 1 minute we all want the latest and greatest phone, and the next minute there's something new and shiny on the market.
Oh, absolutely. That's a constant challenge for companies trying to manage their supply chains. They have to find that sweet spot between having enough inventory to meet demand, but not having too much excess if demand suddenly drops.
Right, because I imagine having a warehouse full of outdated smartphones wouldn't be great for business.
Not at all. And that's where things like accurate forecasting and data analysis come in. Companies are using all sorts of tools to try and anticipate those shifts in demand and adjust their production accordingly.
Makes sense. But even with the best planning in the world, there are always going to be curveballs, right?
Oh, definitely. Like, remember what happened when that volcano erupted in Iceland a few years back?
Vaguely. It caused some travel chaos, didn't it?
Yeah, it shut down airspace across Europe and messed up supply chains all over the place. It was a good reminder that even something as seemingly unrelated as a volcano can have ripple effects on the global economy.
Wow. It's like everything's connected.
Precisely. And those unexpected events are becoming more common these days, what with climate change and geopolitical instability and everything else that's going on.
So how do companies even begin to prepare for that kind of uncertainty?
Well, one thing they're doing is diversifying their supply chains. Instead of relying on a single supplier or a single region for a particular component, they're spreading out their risk.
Kind of like a don't put all your eggs in one basket approach.
Exactly. It's all about building in some flexibility and resilience so that if one part of the supply chain is disrupted, the whole thing doesn't grind to a halt.
That makes a lot of sense. But even with those safeguards in place, it seems like managing a global supply chain is kind of like walking a tightrope.
It definitely takes a lot of skill and a little bit of luck. But thankfully, there are tons of smart people out there working on new and innovative ways to make supply chains more efficient, sustainable, and resilient. And that's something we'll be diving into a little bit later.
Ooh, now you've got me intrigued. Tell me more. All right, spill it. What's got you so excited about the future of supply chains?
Well, one thing that's really interesting is this push towards sustainability.
Sustainability.
Yeah.
So we're talking about making supply chains more eco-friendly.
Exactly. Consumers are becoming more and more aware of the environmental impact of, everything, really.
Right, like how much carbon emissions are created by shipping stuff all over the world.
That's a big one.
No.
And then there's also the issue of waste. Like what happens to all those old smartphones when people upgrade to a new model?
Yeah, good point. Because those things are packed with all sorts of materials that aren't exactly biodegradable.
Exactly. So companies are under pressure to figure out how to make their supply chains more sustainable from start to finish.
So it's not just about making the products themselves more eco-friendly, but also about sourcing materials, responsibly reducing waste during manufacturing, and making sure products can be recycled or disposed of properly at the end of their life cycle.
You got it. It's a whole systems approach.
That makes a lot of sense. But it also sounds like a massive undertaking. How are companies even beginning to tackle all of that?
Well, it's definitely a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. A lot of companies are realizing that sustainability can actually be good for business.
So.
Well, for one thing, consumers are often willing to pay a premium for products that are made ethically and sustainably.
That's true. I know I'm more likely to buy from a company that's making an effort to be environmentally responsible.
Exactly. And then there are the cost savings that can come from things like reducing waste and energy consumption.
So it's a win-win for companies and the planet.
Precisely. And the really exciting thing is that technology is playing a huge role in making all of this possible.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that earlier with things like blockchain and AI. How are those technologies being used to create more sustainable supply chains?
Well, for starters, blockchain can be used to track the origins of materials and products, which helps to ensure that they're sourced ethically and sustainably.
So it's like a digital paper trail that allows companies to verify where everything's coming from.
Exactly. And then there's AI, which can be used to optimize all sorts of things, like shipping routes and production schedules, which can help to reduce waste and emissions.
So basically, we're talking about using technology to make supply chains smarter and more efficient.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And it's not just about sustainability either. Technology is also helping to make supply chains more resilient.
Resilient, like being able to bounce back from disruptions.
Exactly. Remember how we were talking about those unexpected events that can throw a wrench in the works?
Oh yeah, like that volcano in Iceland?
Right. Well, AI and other technologies can help companies to anticipate those disruptions and adapt more quickly.
So it's like having a crystal ball that can see into the future of the supply chain.
Not quite a crystal ball,
No.
but close. These technologies can analyze massive amounts of data to identify potential risks and opportunities.
That's wild. So it's like supply chain management is becoming this high-tech game of chess.
In a way, it's all about strategy and anticipating your opponent's moves. Except in this case, the opponent is uncertainty itself.
Wow. Well, it's been fascinating learning about all of this. Who knew that something as seemingly simple as a smartphone could open up such a complex and important topic?
It's one of those things we don't often think about, but it really does touch on so many aspects of our lives, from the technology we use every day to the future of our planet.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. But hey, to our listeners out there, the next time you pick up your smartphone, take a moment to appreciate the incredible journey it took to get into your hands. It might just change the way you see the world.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you today.
The pleasure was all mine. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.